Okay, good morning, everyone. We are continuing over here in the 13 Principles of Faith, and we're holding in the fourth of the 13 Principles. And I assume that this will be our last class until after the Pesach holiday. We hope that we'll be able to be in person again, although we have no idea at this point what's going to be. In any event, learning will continue, be'ez Hashem, but I'm sure everyone's going into high cleaning mode for Pesach and getting ready. So this week will be the last class. Next Thursday already is Yom Tov anyway, and I'll let you know after Yom Tov when we start up the classes again. But remember, the principle that we're dealing with over here, which is number 4, is Ani ma'amim be'emunah shalema. I believe with complete faith. Hashem is first and Hashem is last. And we spoke about this idea last week and it connects with Yetzias Mitzrayim, with the Exodus from Egypt, and it connects as well with our current situation in the world, and that is that Hashem is the one who preceded the world, and Hashem is the one that will be here after the world. And everything that is taking place in this world, everything that's taking place in our lives, history from beginning until end, it's all the Rabbi Shalom, it's all the Master of the universe. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu sometimes does unusual things that go outside the realm of natural laws of nature, because He needs to reveal Himself to the world, that we should understand and that we should know that Hashem is there. We find this, as the Ramban writes, by Yetzias Mitzrayim, by the Exodus from Egypt, that the reason that Hashem did so many signs and wonders and miracles and nisim and iflois is because He once again had to introduce to the world, and especially to Klal Yisrael, that He is the master of the universe. There was a time when the Jewish people all believed wholeheartedly in Hashem, and then unfortunately after the hundreds of years of assimilation and being entrenched in the impurities of Mitzrayim, so we became completely forlorn from Hashem. We forgot to believe in Him. We didn't even know what it meant to believe in Him anymore. We were serving idols, and we were doing all of the black magic and the worship that was going on in Egypt. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, "Are you forgetting who I am? Do you forget who created the world? Do you forget that I revealed myself to you? Do you forget all of these things?" And therefore He brought one makkah, one plague after the other, and it was all with the intention of letting us once again become aware of who is the master of this universe. That's none other than Hashem Himself. And we pointed out last week that in a certain way we could examine the world events that are unfolding in front of our eyes as well, and we could understand that one of the reasons that Hashem seems to be doing what He's doing is because He wants us to recognize that Hashem Hu Elokim, He is the Creator, He is watching over, and He is intimately involved with Hashgacha Pratis, with divine intervention over every little detail, every little thing that is going on here in this world. And so as we go through these days that have turned into weeks, and we are fearful that perhaps the weeks will turn into months, it's our job and our duty as Jews to recognize that everything that is taking place is none other than the hand of Hashem, and Hashem is humbling us, and He is robbing us of all of the things that we have in our life that normally distract us from this image and this vision that we have of Him, and therefore we try our best to utilize this time wisely and recognize that Hashem Hu Elokim, Hashem is the ultimate master of this world, Hu Rishon v'Achron, He came first, and therefore He's the one that is entitled to do with this world whatever He sees fit should be done. And He will come last. He is last. He will be eternal forever and ever. Now, I want to discuss something today which is a little bit of a deeper concept in creation, but it will also shed light on that which is taking place in front of our eyes in our generation, in our times. One of the things that the Rambam writes in his longer, extended version of the 13 Principles of Faith is everything that exists in this world, that exists besides him. Bilti kadmoin be'erka elov. Says the Rambam the following. Hashem yizbarach kadmoin l'kol davar asher nifra. Hashem preceded everything that exists in this world. Lefi shelameinu olam hageshem, and our world is a physical world, and this is going to be a contradiction. Hashem is not physical at all. As we know, we spoke about it before. He doesn't have eyes, he doesn't have a nose, he doesn't have ears, he doesn't have legs, he doesn't have hands. There is no physical manifestation of Hashem. He's completely and totally spiritual. And therefore, this world that we live in is the exact opposite, really, of Hashem. Because this is a world of physicality. This is a world of geshem, of gashmius, of chaymer, of physical entities and materialistic things. So how does Hashem, who is anti-physical, who is anti-chaymer, anti-earthiness, how does HaKadosh Baruch Hu end up fitting himself here into this world? Which means for each and every one of us, we have to try to understand, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself is not physical, and we are living in a physically based world because we are all physical human beings and entities, and everything around us is of the physical nature, it's a manifestation of the entire physical world from one spectrum to the next. So then how could we, physical beings in this physical world, expect to have any real relation, any real connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? How is that going to work? So he writes, Lefi shalomeinu olam hageshem. This world is a physical world. But the way in which the physical world comes about is actually, the back door is spiritual entities, as he's going to explain. Now we explained this before in previous classes. It's the HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the top of existence. He is the spiritual of all spirituality of entities that there are. And the way in which he creates this physical world is only because he allowed there to be maybe hundreds, if not thousands, of spiritual worlds where Hashem descends, so to speak, until he gets into this physical creation that we call Olam Hazeh, that we call this world. Which means God is the ultimate. Then underneath him there is another spiritual universe and entity, which means that it's filtered down from the top. And then underneath that there's another spiritual world which is filtered down from the world above that. And so on and so forth. It keeps getting filtered down and filtered down and filtered down, which means the ruchnius quality of every single world that is below the world, which is on top of it, is a lower amount of ruchni, of spiritual, and it becomes more and more misgashem, more and more physical. The less spiritual that something is, the more magushim, the more physical it is by very definition. So when you find a person who will tell you, I'm not such a spiritual person, the only reason that they say that they're not spiritual is because they're very much connected to the magushim aspect of themselves, the physical entity and their desires and their taivas. When you find a person who is ruchni, who is more spiritual, that's because they have transcended the physicality of this world. They have entered into the Olam HaRuchni, into the world of Ruchnius, and therefore they're connecting much more with the spirituality, the content of this world which is beyond the physical. I told this story many times, I'm sure, but years ago when I was still living in Baltimore, going back almost 20 years ago, Rav Scheinberg Zatzal, who is the famous Rav who wore about 100 pairs of tzitzis on him every single day, and he had tefillin that was on adorning his head constantly, except of course on Shabbos and Yom Tiv. He came to visit Baltimore, and he stayed by, I believe, one of his old Talmidim, his students, and the house was like a Rishus HaRabim, like a public thoroughfare. People were coming and going day and night into the house, asking him for brachas, asking him for shilas, questions, for advice, guidance. And on Shabbos afternoon, they opened up the house to everyone in the community that they should come for shalashudas, for the third meal. And we went to the house. I went to the house. I wanted to be there to be part of it. And there were maybe about 100, 150 people packed into a very tiny dining room. And it was a sweltering summer day in Baltimore. And the heat in Baltimore not only is hot, but it's also extremely humid. And inside that packed little dining room with about 100, 150 people, it was almost unbearable. You simply could not breathe. The heat was so oppressive. There were people that were there. They were taking off their coats, taking off their hats, loosening up their ties, dripping buckets of sweat, trying to drink whatever liquid and beverages they could get into their hands. Rav Scheinberg was at this time probably about 80 years old, probably 85 years old. He was sitting in the front of the dining room, surrounded on all sides by people. He was wearing 100 pairs of woolen tzitzis, okay? And he's got a fan that's blowing, but instead of blowing on him, it was blowing away from him. And while every other person in the room was pouring out buckets of sweat, Rav Scheinberg, and I couldn't take my eyes off him because I had to see if this was real or not, he did not break one bead of perspiration for the entire 2 hours that we were all there in that room together. And the reason is because Rav Scheinberg, as physical as he was, we saw his body, we saw his face, we heard his voice. However, Rav Scheinberg existed on a level of transcendence from the physical world, and he was totally makusha, completely connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the spiritual realms. And therefore the body just becomes like a lavush, like clothing. Your clothes don't sweat. Yeah, a vessel, a cup doesn't sweat when it's hot outside. You sweat because you are a physical being who has animalistic attributes of him, just like an animal will sweat when it gets overheated, so you'll also oversweat. But a person whose body becomes just a vessel for the spiritual neshama that's inside of it doesn't need to be trapped in or drawn after the physicality, the physical restrictions here of this world. So says Rabbi Ben Zion Epstein in his beautiful sefer over here on the Yud Gimel Ikrim on the 13 attributes of faith. How does it work out that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to come down into this world? The Hashem is completely ruchni, total spiritual. This world is totally physical. So how does it work? So he explains this concept which we've described before from the Nefesh HaChaim, that Hashem is the ultimate, he's on top, and then and he keeps funneling himself down into the world, into one spiritual world after another, after another, after another. But every time that the world goes down, so that means that there's less of a spiritual quality of that world, and it's getting more and more closer here to the physical world. And one level after the other, the ruchnius, the spiritual worlds, they go down and down and down. From their pure and their clear and their illuminant levels, the light of the spiritual world, it gets mitzumtzum, it gets reduced one level after the other. The Hester, hidden level after one level, it's more and more hidden. And through that, there is able to be something that we would call this physical, earthy and material world that we live in. Says Epstein over here, it is impossible that HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have made a world where he's going to be a part of it and just poof, it's going to be like that. The only way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have allowed himself to be part of this physical world is if you have a whole chain of worlds that are getting less and less and less and less and less physical, where the Shekhinah, the Divine Presence, is mitzumtzem, is becoming confined, so to speak, in every single world. And as the spiritual world is entering into the physical world, so then you end up, after so many thousands of levels away from the source, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you could have something that we have over here, very physical. Now, what does that mean for practical purposes? We'll take ourselves out of the more Kabbalistic realm that we are describing over here, but just to try to understand down to earth. What it means for us is that the world in which we are a part of, the physical world, is the smallest place in all of creation where HaKadosh Baruch Hu actually exists. Because in order for Hashem to come and exist in the physical world, that means that Hashem, keviyachol, so to speak, he has to restrict himself in order to be a part of this world. Hashem's atzmos, his essence and the self of who he is totally spiritual. It doesn't relate to physicality. So when we say that Hashem made the world yesh ma'ayin, something from nothing, that itself is perhaps one of the biggest miracles that Hashem ever made. That Hashem could take a spiritual world, which was all spiritual before him, ruchni, neshamadik, elokim, godliness, and then reduce it into a physical world in order that we should have the greatest amount of benefit, that we could connect ourselves to Hashem. So that itself is a miracle that's unparalleled since the creation of the beginning of time. And therefore, this world and the way that Hashem made it is the only way that Hashem can make something physical. But you have to know that behind everything is the spiritual entity of Hashem. Which means that if you want to find Hashem in the physical world, you're going to have to work very hard to peel away layer after layer after layer to be able to recognize and come in contact with real ruchnius, with real spirituality. Now, we are in a situation right now in history where there is a virus, and perhaps this will help us to understand this. You cannot see the virus. You cannot see what it is. Even if you get it underneath that microscope over there, it is so tiny and so small, and it weighs nothing, basically, as the scientists say, that it's almost not tangible type of a thing that a person is able to relate to. And yet, within the virus that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created, it wasn't a Chinese man who's eating bats that created the virus. But that would be too simple for us to say and point a finger and blame. Hashem is the one who created the virus. And in this little tiny drop that is running around the entire world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has hidden himself as well. If Hashem can hide himself in there, and he can restrict himself into that, then certainly HaKadosh Baruch Hu can hide himself behind the mask of the entire universe. He's behind the sun, he's behind the moon, he's behind the mountain, he's behind the seas, he is behind human beings, he's behind everything. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is behind it all. And our job as a committed and dedicated Jew is, we must try to reveal to ourselves at least, and eventually we want to reveal that to the entire universe, that the driving force behind everything, and that which is creating and is running the show, that's all and nothing less than and nothing more than, of course, the Ribbono Shel Olam, the master of this universe. Now that's up to us if we're going to do that. And when you find yourself in a situation where it's so unknown and it's so unclear and there's so much physical upheaval that is going on right now all around us, so then because that we are people of Amunah, we are living by the guidelines of our faith, we understand that if we'll just look a little bit beyond the veneer that is there, we should be able to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I would even venture to say, in my humble opinion, for whatever it's worth, that if a person will use this time wisely, during this period of our history, during this time where it's so unknown and so uncertain and there are so many things that no longer are running as normal as they used to, I would venture to say that the amount of Hashem that you are going to be able to find in your life and you'll be able to find in this world is possibly exponentially greater than what we could accomplish in a regular day. Because since that on a regular day, there are so many other things that make it difficult to find Hashem and to see Hashem. We are too preoccupied with all the details of our life and society that is running around us. So therefore Hashem is staring us in the face and yet we don't see Him. Right now, when all of the noise of the world is shut down and we're able to just examine the world for what it is and seek and search for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why shouldn't we find Hashem more during this time than perhaps in the regular, relaxed, and tranquil times and normal times of our life? And therefore, says the Rambam, you have to keep in mind in this principle of faith, that is that there is nothing in this world that exists unless that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the power and the source behind it all. But the only way that it could exist in the physical world is if Hashem, Keviyachol, so to speak, limited himself smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller to leave the realm of pure Ruchni to get into the realm of Gashmi, into physicality. That means that behind the Gashmi, behind the physical and the material world, is really the Ribbono Shel Olam, but you're going to have to work very hard to connect with that. And that is our mission, and that is the task that is in front of us. And I think that if we don't overeat too much over the next couple of months and make ourselves even more earthy than we are, we could become extremely ruchni, extremely spiritual during this time of our life, because that's really all that is left. Again, that means you'll have to put down the phone for many hours a day. That means you won't be able to watch every WhatsApp video that people are sending you. You won't be able to laugh at every single joke that is there that the world is sending around to try to make light of the coronavirus situation. That's really, every single joke is doing that. Every time that you get a message, and every time you get an email, and every time you get a WhatsApp, and every time somebody posts on their status some joke about the coronavirus, that means that they are limiting the ability and the opportunities that we have to turn this entire experience into a spiritual experience of dveikis, of closeness to Hashem, and they would like to lower it and bring it down, that it becomes something that unfortunately is much just more shallow, and therefore we won't be able to keep piercing through the layers that are there and make it into something that is ruchni, something that is spiritual. So don't look at every video, don't read every single joke, don't send it around the world and make light of the situation itself. It's serious business what is going on out there right now. It's serious business. There are people, Rahmana Litzlan, that are dying every single day. Tens and dozens, if not 50, if not 100 people. People that we know about, people that we are connected to. Families that are walking around right now in darkness because they have Yisayimim, they have orphans. And they have wives who are widows, and they don't know where the next piece of bread is going to come from. They don't know how they're going to make a Seder without their father sitting by the Seder table. It's serious business. And the world would like to turn it into a joke. But we can't turn it into a joke, because once that we do, that means that we remove our ability to have a very deep connection with Hashem during these times. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is begging us, connect to me. You know, just like you have on Zoom, you got to connect. If you want to see the speaker, if you want to hear their voice, you have to connect. And if you don't know how to connect, you just won't connect. You won't hear, you won't see, you'll miss the class. If we miss the connection that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is trying to make for us right now, and we just overlook it, and we demystify, and we belittle that which is going on, then we'll just keep tapping the buttons, and we'll keep seeing the things that are going on. And when the whole thing is over, all we'll be able to say is, oh, finally, I can go to the store. Oh, finally, I can have guests at my Shabbos table. Oh, finally, I can go back to shul. Oh, finally, I can go on my vacation that I was waiting for. Finally. Says Hashem, did you miss the point? I did everything so that you should be able to find me. I did everything so that you should be able to get close to me. I did everything that you should be able to not have to worry about this X, Y, and Z that's always lying on your head all day long and distracting you from recognizing me. I took it away, and now you were just supposed to use the time. Get close to me, says Hashem. Says Rav Epstein over here. Number one, we have to understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has made a world in which He Himself and alone is able to reveal Himself through the physicality, but we have to tap into that. And that's why we try to live as spiritual as we can. Torah is spiritual. Mitzvahs are spiritual. Tefillah, our prayers, are spiritual. Chesed is spiritual. thinking, making a cheshbon nefesh, thinking about the meaning of your life and what you could change, that's a spiritual exercise. Controlling your desires and not having everything that you want all of the time, that is ruchni, that is spiritual. And so on and so forth, all of the things that we do in our life, that's the ruchniest way that we connect to this world, and that's how we're going to connect to Hashem. If we get lost in the chaymer, in the materialism of this world and the earthiness of this world, then we will not be able to gravitate towards Hashem, and we can live an entire life of having no shaykhis, no connection. There's a Gemara in Brachos that tells us that there was one of the one of the sages. One of the sages wanted to know what was going on achrei pargud, what was taking place beyond this world. So he went into the cemetery one night and he listened and he heard that there were voices that were speaking to each other. That means that after this world, which we think that's the end, there's actually a spiritual existence as well. And there were two young ladies that were speaking to each other. And one of the young ladies over there was talking about the fact that she was such a magushim, that she was so physically oriented in this world. She spent so much of her time busy putting on makeup and going into all the fashions and the styles and being concerned about what everybody else thought about her all of her life. Even in that world, which we always say, well, when the person goes into the next world, they'll become spiritual, they'll transcend, their neshama will take off. She said, guess what? In the next world, I'm as physical as I was in this world as well. Because that I was so connected to the lowliness of the gashmias, the physicality of this world, because my whole life mattered to me, my rouge and my blush and my jewelry and my clothes and everything like that, I'm now in the next world. Guess what? I have no peace. I have no rest, because in that spiritual world, you can't have a new shaitel. You can't have fancy jewelry. You can't have a nice car. You can't have decadent meals. You can't have a luxurious vacation. That commodity, it doesn't work over there. So if in this world a person didn't try to make themselves into a spiritual being, at least have a connection to it, in the world to come, in the world where it should be spiritual, and we are at a loss, we don't even know how to connect to it. So we have to connect. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving us ways to connect Him. And He wants us to connect Him. He wants our davening, He wants our tilim, He wants our midas, our character traits to be refined during this time. He wants us to pick one mitzvah that has always been daunting and has always concerned us. How am I going to be able to do such a thing? I don't have the inner strength to do it. So what if you don't have the inner strength to do it every single day and all of the time? But try during this time. Nobody else is watching. You don't have to be embarrassed that you're too religious. You don't have to be embarrassed that you can't keep it up every single day. Nobody sees. It's you and the Ribbono Shel Olam. Nobody else sees. Nobody else cares. Nobody else has to know. We have an opportunity right now in our homes to make our homes into a spiritual shrine. Not a shrine, but a spiritual synagogue where we could just be living with ruchnius. Yeah, we might have to turn off the plasma TV a little bit longer every single day. We might have to say more tehillim. We might have to be involved with more mitzvahs in our house. It's all true, but our house could become a beis haknesses. It could become a shul. It could become a beis midrash. It could become a yeshiva, a seminary. It could become a place where you study and you plumb the depths of Hashem's wisdom. That's what it could be right now. That's what we're supposed to be doing with our homes. Our house should become so holy during this time period that when somebody walks in, they thought they walked into a beis midrash. They think that they walk into a shul. Did I come to the right address? The answer is yes. But I transformed my house over the last couple of months of my life because I realized that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what does He want the most? He says, I'm hiding in this world. I concealed myself. But every once in a while He reveals Himself on mass scale. Coronavirus is a massive revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And He's saying, just you get in touch with me and you see what I'm all about. And if we do that, if we will do that wisely, and we'll do it smartly, being part of classes and learning and saying tehillim and davening and everything that we do in the world of mitzvahs, all of that is the way that we're going to make this connection. So at the end of the Rambam statements, again, as he writes in the extended version of the Yud Gimel Ikrim of the 13 Principles of Faith, he writes the following: this fourth principle, it teaches us that which it says in the Chumash. And there's a pasuk that says, Ma'ayna Elokei Kedem, that this world is the abode of Elokei Kedem, of the God of Kedem, of from before. Is it saying that the world itself is an abode for God who precedes everything? Or is it saying that Hashem, who precedes everything, is an abode for this world? Which one is it? Is the world an abode that allows HaKadosh Baruch Hu a place, and He is the God of from before, meaning before the world was created, and He now has a place where He can come and rest? Or are we saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu Himself is the abode that allows the world its resting place? So he explains like this. First of all, the Sforno writes in the Chumash on this verse, Elokei Kedem. What does it mean that He is an earlier God? Elokai Kadmoin. He is the first God. Everything that you find in this world was this Chadesh, came about as Hashem's willing and His desire. Meaning that the source of all life in this world is Hashem. He comes first. Whatever you will see in this world, it's all because HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to bring it in and to make it the way that it is. Ulefishu Elokei Kedem. And since that Hashem is first, He preempts everything. Hu Rishain. He's the first of everything. Hashem existed before there was a world. Therefore, by that very definition, He is the abode of this physical world. Kedisa b'midrash, like it says in the Midrash, Vayivka b'makayim. It says that Yaakov Avinu was running away from his brother Esav, and he was running to go find a wife. And it says Vayivka b'makayim. He reached that makayim, that place. Now the simple understanding is, what does it mean? He reached the place. He reached Haro Maria, the place where Avram Avinu brought Yitzchak to shecht his son, the place eventually where the Beis Hamikdash would stand, and he reached that place. Says the Midrash, Rav Huna b'shem Rav Ami Omar, mipnei ma machnim shemay shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu gromas ha'makim. It doesn't really mean vayivka b'makim that he reached that place, the physical place. Rather, he reached ha'makim, he reached the place, he reached Hashem. Now, why does the Torah call Hashem Makayim, a place? Shu Makayim Shalom, because Hashem is the Makayim, He is the place of this entire world. Ve'ina Olam Makayim, and the world is not His place. This is the answer to our question. It's not that the world is a place for Hashem to come and hang His hat. It's not that this world is a place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu can find some rest. Rather, Hashem is the Makayim, is the place. And the world, keviyachal, it's as if the world is resting in Hashem. Because would it not be for the Rabbi Shalom, there would be no world. But would it not be for the world, there would still be a Rabbi Shalom. So you can't say that the world is a place where Hashem is resting, where Hashem is coming into, where Hashem is finding a makom, finding a place where He could be. Rather, it is that Hashem, who is the source of all of the life, He is the Risha, and He's the beginning of all creation. Therefore, the world itself only exists because Hashem is here, and therefore the world is resting in Makayim Shalom, in the place of the world, which is Hashem. Amar Rav Yitzchak. Rav Yitzchak says, like it says that the abode of the world is Elokei Kedem, is the initial existence, which is Hashem. So Hashem is the abode of the world, not that the world is the abode for Hashem, which is interesting to note because we have something called the Mishkan. And the Mishkan is the command that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to Klal Yisrael. I want you to create an abode for me in this world where I will be able to dwell. Even though that the world itself is dwelling inside of me, but I need one place where you will always know that I exist. So make for me Vasuli Mishkan. Make for me a Mishkan, you physical people, with all the physical materials. You harness everything together as one. You create a physical edifice, which is an amazing idea in of itself. And that edifice will be so infused with Kedusha, with holiness, and with Ruchniya spirituality, that I will now place myself, the Shekhinah will find a place to dwell here in this world. Which means that the world itself, at large, is really a physical entity. And it's only here because it's resting in the Makayim Shalom, in the place of the world, which is Hashem. But Hashem told Klal Yisrael, you are a nation that is L'mayla min hateva. You transcend nature, you transcend physicality. And since that you transcend the physicality of this world, therefore, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what does that mean? That means that you are actually able to make me a dwelling place that is going to be ruchnius, spiritual, and I will come and dwell inside of it. V'asuli migdash, you make the Mishkan, you make the sanctuary, the tabernacle. V'shechanti b'seichen, I will come and I will dwell inside of there. So any Jew that will create a Mishkan in their life, whether they make their house into a Mishkan, whether they make the room that they've davened into a Mishkan, they help make the shul into a Mishkan, or they make themselves into a Mishkan, into a dwelling place, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you are a spiritual entity, and I am also a spiritual entity, and I will come and I will dwell inside of you. Einanu yoidim im HaKadosh Baruch Hu ma'oinei she'olam v'im oilama ma'oinei. So the Midrash goes on to say, we don't really know, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu the ma'oinei she'olam, is he the abode of the world, or is the world his abode? Madichsi, but it says in the pasuk, Hashem ma'oin ata, Hashem, you are the abode. And we learn from this that Hashem is the ma'oinah, he is the abode of this world, as we are saying. He is mekayma shel olam, he is the source, he is the edifice, he is everything that this world stands in, and therefore the world has a chance at becoming ruchni, becoming spiritual, because we are resting, so to speak, inside of Hashem. That means, again, in our life that we are leading right now and the times that we are going through, it is possible, it is very possible, if a person does things wisely, you could become much more spiritual during this time in your life than ever before. But you have to use the time wisely. You have to have a plan. You have to have a plan of action and things that you want to accomplish and things that you would like to achieve and mitzvahs that you would like to grow in and davening that you would like to make better and Shabbos that you'd like to make more beautiful and Pesach that you'd like to make more meaningful. How miserable are most people dreading the Pesach right now? Because they know they're going to be by themselves, without their children, without their grandchildren, stuck behind closed doors all by themselves. Do you think that Hashem wants you to have a miserable Yom Tov? Do you really think that the Master of the universe, who saved Klal Yisrael from Mitzrayim, who took us through the splitting of the sea, brought us to Har Sinai, gave us the Torah, has allowed us to survive through Sedarim, which took place during the Inquisition behind closed doors in the basement, and when the Jews were leaving Eretz Yisrael, going into Golus and Bavel, and when there were Sedarim that were taking place, whatever that means, in Auschwitz? Do you think that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to have a miserable Seder in 2020, living in America, wherever you might be? Is that possible? That's what Hashem wants? It's impossible. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want you to be miserable. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want you to feel bad all Seder. Oh, I wonder what my grandchildren are doing at this time. Yes, you can think to yourself. You wonder what they're doing. You hope that they're having a good time. But you have to grow through the Seder this year. You have to read the words. You have to take the time. You have to read it to yourself. You have to read it to your spouse. You have to read it to your children. Whatever the situation is going to be. And you have to find new messages and new ideas and inspiration in the Haggadah, in the Seder, in the Matzah, in the Maror, like you never ever had before. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us, seems to be telling us, you could do it. And if you will just be wise and you will just be smart and you will be sensitive to these things, what you could accomplish this year on the Seder is like never, ever before in your entire life. So you won't be by your grandchildren and you won't be in a hotel and you won't have everybody sitting around your table. So what? Hashem decided that the best place for you to be this year for the Seder is at your table, in your home, with your husband, or with your children, or by yourself, and there is the place that you're going to grow more and accomplish more than any other year of Pesach to date. Since that Hashem precedes everything, He invents everything, He creates everything. He's the source of everything. He is called the abode, which precedes it all. He is the source. He is the place of this world. That's who HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, which means that everything that we see in the world today is only here because Hashem Elokim decided that is what needs to be here, and that's the way that things are supposed to be. Isn't that comforting? Isn't it comforting to know that the creator of the universe, who brought everything into existence and who watches over everything and is constantly involved hashkachically in the hashkacha pratis of this world and running everything so perfectly the way that He sees fit, isn't it comforting to know that the same God who took us out of Mitzrayim and saved us from an inquisition and from a Holocaust, the same exact God is the one who's making the coronavirus? Isn't that something that should bring us menuchas hanefesh, peace of mind and tranquility, instead of anxiety and pain, instead of worry? Isn't it something we should say to ourselves, wow, look at the Jews who during the Holocaust, they kept their faith strongly intact. Look at them. Look what they were able to accomplish after the war. They got out of there, they were liberated, they were redeemed, they went on, they rebuilt their lives, they got married again, they had new families, new children, and now today they're sitting maybe with hundreds, if not thousands of grandchildren as a result of what they accomplished because they remained faithful and strong and intact during the war. Who could imagine what we could accomplish during these times? If the whole world is getting hung up in horror and in fear and in panic and anxiety, and everybody's pinning all of their hopes into the president, into the doctors, into the drugs that they're finding, into the governors and the senators of every single state. And we say, no. We're going to put all of our hope and all of our prayers into Hashem. Because we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu always saves the Jewish people from their plight. Like we're going to say in the Haggadah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu stood by our side. Not only in one generation, in every single generation, there's always been an assault on Klal Yisrael. However, HaKadosh Baruch Hu matzi leinu miyadam, Hashem never takes away His loving embrace. He never turns His back on Klal Yisrael. He's matzi leinu, He rescues us and He saves us miyadam, from their hands. Whether it is a physical enemy, whether it is a spiritual enemy, or even in this case, whether it is a viral enemy. It doesn't matter. HaKadosh Baruch Hu never abandons us. Umatzi leinu miyadam. He saves us and He will rescue us. The virus is not going to go on forever, just as the Holocaust didn't go on forever. The coronavirus is not going to destroy all of Klal Yisrael, just like the Inquisition cannot destroy us. The coronavirus, COVID-19, is not going to exile us from our lands forever and ever, or from our shuls forever, just like the Jewish people eventually returned to Eretz Yisrael after the Churban Habayis, after the destruction. So what are we worrying about? What are we concerned about? It's unknown. It's unnerving right now what is going on. Yes, it is. Has any part of your life ever been not unnerving? Has anything that we went through in our lives never been uncertain and unclear? I think HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us, you never had any control over your life. You never knew what you were doing. You never really understood. You thought that you did, but you don't. And if we were willing to go be'amunah shleima previously with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and trust in Hashem in the areas of our life that we thought we had a little bit of understanding of what was going on, So it's now incumbent upon each and every one of us to recognize the Ribbono Shel Olam is the one that is running this world, and he cares so deeply about each and every one of us. And he only wants what is for our best. And sometimes there is suffering, and sometimes there is tragedy. And it will be one of the unanswered questions in this world. Like Hashem did not answer Moshe Rabbeinu when he asked, why is there suffering? Because he said, you can't understand. Do you see what I see? Do you see a world unfolding in front of you from beginning of creation till the times of Mashiach? You don't see that. Nobody is able to see my essence, which is what is deciding and is maneuvering the world to its ultimate pathway and be able to live, because you can't. It's an impossibility. You're a human being finite in this world. So we can't see and we can't know. But one thing we do know, Hashem stood by our side in every single generation. And we got through it all. And there were times, really, if you think about it, much worse than we have today. The Holocaust, much worse. Inquisition, much worse. Churban Abayis, much worse. We're still, Baruch Hashem, we're in our homes, we have a roof over our head. No, there's no Gestapo pounding on the door, yanking us out in the middle of the night and separating us from our families. Yes, it's true, we are separated from our families, but we know that they're safe and they're sound. And we have telephones, and we have FaceTime, and we have Zoom, and we have WhatsApp, and we have Skype. We have all different things. We're not disconnected. Rabbi Chanan Wasserman, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, was one of the main disciples of the Chavetz Chaim. He had a son whose name was Reb Simcha. And during World War I, Reb Simcha was on the run. His father had sent him on a certain mission to go and do, and as a result of being beyond the border, he wasn't able to get back to Baranovich where his family was. For, I think it was a year, 2 years, he was missing in action. No phones, no telegrams, no WhatsApp, nothing. His parents had no idea at all where he was. Finally, after like a year or 2 years, one day Rav Simcha managed to pass through the borders. The war had ended and he came back and he walked into his front door. And his father, the great Rabbi Chanan Wasserman, who should have been overjoyed to see his son, and of course he was, but he was a man he had a different way that he expressed his emotions. He looked at his son and he said 2 brachas. One bracha, Mechaya Mesim, that Hashem brought him back to life, because when 30 days go by and you don't know where a person is and you see them, you can make the bracha Mechaya Mesim. In our generation, we don't do such things because we're always connected with people. But when you had a year or 2 years where you literally did not know where your son was, he could have died. So he said the blessing of Hashem brought you back to life. And he said the bracha of Shechianu, that he saw him, that he reached this time that he was so excited to see his son once again. And then he turned to his son and he said, Simcha, I'm sure in the last 2 years you were doing a lot of different things. And I'm sure learning Torah was not one of them. So he said, here's the Gemara. Go sit down and learn Torah like you haven't been able to do for the last 2 years of your life. So everybody hears the story. They say, that's what a father says to his son. How insolent. How insensitive could he have been? You don't hug, you don't kiss, you don't tell him, wow, I'm so excited, thank you for being here. What you see from this story is that Rabbi Chanan Wasserman, for 2 years when his son was not around, he did not worry a kihuz an ounce what was happening to his son. Because he knows that the Ribbono Shel Olam runs the universe. And everything that Hashem does is good. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what he's doing. And therefore I don't have to be living in pain and worry and concern and not knowing where my son is. I know HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what he's doing. If my son is alive, then he is safe and he is sound and Hashem is protecting him. If Rahman al-Islam, the worst thing that could have happened, that was also the will of Hashem. And when he sees his son in total calmness, as if he was waiting every single day, his son's just going to walk in the house because Hashem runs the world. And he says the brachas, and he says, Rav Simcha, go and learn. You have so much Torah that you have to make up for the last couple of years. And we are the same. We have to strengthen ourselves in this amun in HaKadosh Baruch Hu right now. We know HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you run the world and you know what you are doing. Our job is peel away the layers of Gashmi, of physicality. Peel away all the news stories. Peel away all the hard pictures that we see. Peel it all away. And see that behind everything is Hashem. And if we will do that during this particular time in our lives, we will get so close to Hashem. We won't be able to believe the connection that we walk away with from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's a very chashuv Yid who lives here in Los Angeles. I don't know if I'm allowed to say his name. He doesn't like when it's publicized. He was one of the 13 or 14 Iranian Jews that were taken into custody for spying for the land of Israel about 22 years ago. It was all trumped up charges. Not at all. They didn't do anything. If you would see this person, he's maybe about 5'3". There's no way that he was a spy for the land of Israel at all. But the Iranian government, Rishayim, and they wanted to afflict the Jewish people. And so therefore, on the first night of the first night of the Seder, after the Seder was over, he was sleeping, and the guards, the government, they came and they whisked him away, and they took him to the prison. I think it was actually the night before the Seder. Anyway, he went through 4 years in that prison. Torture, beaten, physically, emotionally, psychologically. They did a number on him. But he said that when he walked out of the prison, not only did he have no tainas, any complaints against the Ribbono Shel Olam, he said he was so close to Hashem, and his amun and his bitachon, his faith and his trust in Hashem was so strong, although that he would never ever wish such suffering on any person in their lifetime, he could not have imagined his life without going through the prison and the tortures of the dungeons of Iranian jail. Because it made him the Oved Hashem, the servant of God, the son of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the connection that he had with Hashem. And if you see this man's face today, he shines, he radiates, he is a light unto this world. Why? Because he lives with Hashem because of what he went through. The world is going through unprecedented times, and it's difficult and it's hard to fathom and understand. Nevertheless, and notwithstanding, we transcend and we go beyond, and if we do, be'ez Hashem, we are going to grow in ways that you cannot imagine what you're going to accomplish. And I'll conclude with these words. Chazal teach us. He says like this. Even though the world looks to be a place that has an existence all in and of itself, it's its own entity. Don't forget that Hashem is what is holding up this world. And if it would have been HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will, or like we see that it is his will, to bring all of these worlds into existence, if Hashem would not want the worlds to be in existence, if Hashem would not have made all these spiritual worlds one after the other coming down to this world, that means that what? That the world that we are living in today would not exist. We would not be here at all. Which means, as he's quoting over here from the Nefesh HaChaim, the reason that there is a world, and the reason that we are here, and the reason that everybody is living the life that they live is because Hashem wants it to be here. But if Hashem would never have wanted us to be here, then he would have never made such a world. Which means that if he made the world, and we spoke about this many times, if he made the world, and the nature of the world is there's going to be suffering, there's going to be struggles, there are going to be challenges, there are going to be things in our life that are uncomfortable to us to deal with. Like it is uncomfortable to deal with this situation, lockdown, but you can't even go out of your house, and you don't even have a choice. You're being told not to go out of your house. That means that Hashem decided that this is also the best thing for the world right now. And it's the best thing for each and every one of us. And it's the best thing for our families. It's the best thing for Klal Yisrael. It's the best thing for all of mankind. Now, what are we supposed to do? We got to get the message. We're not prophets. We're not the children of prophets, and therefore we don't know exactly what the message is. There's probably thousands of messages that a person has to glean from this situation. But one is for sure, as we are saying, based on these words of the Rambam over here, and that is your task in life is to reveal the Ribbono Shel Olam. How are you going to reveal HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Ruchnius, because Hashem is spiritual. Hashem is not attached to the physical world. On the other hand, the physical world is attached to Hashem, and Hashem allows it to run, and He allows it to exist. But if you want to get in tune with Hashem, you're going to have to get into the Olam HaRuchni, into the spiritual world. And that is what we have an opportunity right now. Less distractions, more focus on Hashem. Less screen time, more focus on Hashem. Less running errands, less going shopping, less going on vacations, less being around a lot of different people. More time to be focused in on the Ribbono Shel Olam. If we will do that, Be'ez Hashem, and we will spend our time in this important time that we have right now, and we will use it in the right way, and we won't just fritter it away and waste it. And after 2 months of this whole virus, come back to our senses, oh, Baruch Hashem, everything is over. But we're the same person, if not worse than we were before, then we missed the entire opportunity of this nisayon, of this challenge. The challenge is to make us greater. What is a challenge? To bring out the spiritual potential that a person has inside of them that they never would have been able to access any other way. So you could use these challenging times to be able to access recesses and parts of your neshama and parts of your midos, of your character, and inspiration for mitzvahs that you never accessed before because you didn't even know that it was part of your spiritual nature and your content. If we'll do that, Be'ez Hashem, Hashem will look down on us and He will see that we really actually do care and we do want to get close to Him. And it is hard under the circumstances when everything is topsy-turvy and abnormal. And in that merit, in that zechus, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, you know what? I'll bring you back to normalcy. I'll take away the virus. You'll be able to go back to your shuls, go back to your friends, go back to your classes, go back to your families, be around the people that you love. But we'll come with a different perspective. A perspective of that everything in this world can be used in a spiritual way to elevate it, to come closer and closer to Hashem. We should be Zeichem Yetz Hashem wherever you will be on the night of the Seder, whoever you will be with, use it wisely, raise it up, make it the most meaningful, impactful, eye-opening Seder that you ever had in your life. Yom Tov should be something that is inspiring, where you find the inspiration within yourself to make it something special and spectacular. And ultimately, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should say, you know what? Who needs to keep Klal Yisrael in America? Who needs to keep them in England, in Spain, in Italy? Who needs to keep them there? It's time already, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to bring them back to the ultimate Geula, the ultimate redemption, with the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu b'mheira v'yameinu. Any questions? Yes. Yes.
Okay. I have 2 questions. The easy one is, Geshem is Gashmias.
Yes.
Does rain come from the same root?
Exactly. Exactly it does.
Okay.
Because the rain really is bringing the bracha, the blessing, to the physical world.
Right. Okay. Okay. And then I have for my notes last week and this week. This is the big question. So we become more spiritual, we have more faith in Hashem, and He saves us from the enemies, but He doesn't save everyone.
Correct.
So, like, you could have all the faith in the world and still suffer.
That's correct.
Okay.
This is, as we pointed out, this is the question that Moshe Rabbeinu asked to Hashem. And Hashem told him, you can't understand.
Right, I know.
And so we never could understand. The only thing is that we have to utilize the suffering that a person goes through to make themselves closer to Hashem. And we have to utilize other people's suffering to do more for them, to daven more for them, to feel more for their pain, and to take into account the appreciation that we have to have that if we're not suffering, how much more grateful we have to be to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that He's left us healthy and strong with the abilities to do the things that we want to accomplish in our lives. Rabbi Avigdor Miller Zatzal used to have a sheet of paper with about 50 different medical conditions written on it. And all these medical conditions he didn't have. But that means that there were plenty of people in the world that did have it. But he used to read this list, I think, every single day. And on every one he would thank Hashem, I thank you I don't have this, I thank you I don't have this. So he should appreciate what it means to be healthy. When you go to the doctor and you have to sign in and they ask you what's bothering you, and you only check off a few things instead of 100 things that are there, you have to thank Hashem that you're only checking off a few things. Baruch Hashem, I'm a relatively healthy person. A few aches and pains, a little knocks here and there, it's understood. A car starts wearing down after use, so her body's also going to start wearing down after use after a certain amount of years. But I don't have everything. Baruch Hashem, I still have so many things that I have to be happy for. So we have to learn how to find our own personal appreciation to Hashem for all of the goodness that He brings to us. You're welcome. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Have a good Yom Tiv. There's a shir tonight on the Haggadah, and I hope, Im Yetz Hashem, on Sunday night, to give a Shabbos Haggadah drasha, which normally is given on Shabbos afternoon in Shul. We're not able to do it this year on Shabbos, so I'd like to give it on Sunday night. It'll be a break from your cleaning and cooking for a little while, for about an hour, and you'll follow the newsletter and the emails and messages to see when that will be. Have a wonderful day. All the best.